My name's Alene Rhea. I'm a longtime resident of New York City. I'm also a graduate student at the NYU Center for Data Science and a fellow at the Center for Responsible AI. I'm here to voice my support of proposed bill number 1894. The need for the audits proposed in the bill is plain. Lack of regulation surrounding automated hiring tools has created dangerous loopholes through which companies can evade our city's non-discrimination laws, often unknowingly and without malice. The power of these tools to operate at massive scale demands rigorous scrutiny. I offer the following recommendations for refinement of the proposed audit procedure. Audits ought to be conducted independently by people with specific expertise in employment law, data ethics, and algorithmic fairness. Audits should not be tainted by conflicts of interest. The outcome of an audit ought to explicitly qualify or disqualify the legal use of the tools by employers within New York City. Guidelines for disqualification should be carefully developed by a collaboration between experts from relevant domains. The penalty for violations of the proposed bill ought to be a progressive fine, which increases with the valuation of the offending firm. A $500 fine may be sufficient deterrent for a small business, but there's no reason to think that a $500 fine or even a series of $1,500 fines would cause a multi-billion-dollar company to alter its hiring practices. Audits ought to prioritize fairness metrics which speak to the interests of applicants rather than the interests of employers or vendors. As other panelists have mentioned, there's federal precedent for using adverse impact to define employment discrimination. In addition to adverse impact, I suggest that audits include subgroup error rate analysis. I refer the council to my extended written testimony for an explanation of these metrics. Audits ought to look not only at a tool's decisions, but also at the data on which the tool is trained. Machine learning depends on the use of a training data set, which teaches the tool how to make its decisions. Training data is often tainted by systemic historical bias, which can infect any tool which is trained on it. Firms should be required to defend the use of training data which contains bias or which does not approximate the demographics of the applicant pool or of New York City at large. Audits ought to include an accounting of exactly which features or data points about an applicant are being used as input to the decision system, as well as information about which of these features are most important to the system's decisions. Audits ought to investigate the use of proxy variables by these algorithms. For example, consider a tool that does not use the protected category of race, but does use zip code. The model may learn to use zip code as a proxy for race and to discriminate against certain zip codes which correspond to ethnic enclaves. In addition to sharing audit results with employers and applicants, the full results of each audit should be made publicly available in accessible language. Incorporating these recommendations into the proposed bill would close the loopholes which are currently allowing companies to violate our civil rights under the guise of objective decision-making, and would hold accountable the vendors' employers responsible via their negligence for perpetuating this injustice. With the proposed bill, New York City is poised to bring our decades-long history of leadership in employment protection into a new era. I commend the authors of the bill and thank you for listening to my testimony.